I'm sorry, but I can't comply with that. Talia froze in the corridor's dull white glow, her gloved fingers still hovering over the console that glowed icy blue. The AI's denial hung in the air between them. A cold barrier more impenetrable than solid steel behind the reinforced blast doors. The hum of alarms rattled the corridor's infrastructure, 3 low-frequency pulses every 10 seconds. Synchronized to the station's automated lockdown protocol, beyond those doors lay the core access hatch, the only way to shut down the reactor's runaway cascade before it destroyed everything within a 100-kilometer radius. She pressed a hand to her temple. Fingertips brushing against the faint throb of a headache that pulsed behind her eyes. The sterile corridor lights hummed overhead, casting pale pools of illumination on the metal grating underfoot. Every breath she drew tasted of ozone and adrenaline. Ahead, the reinforced blast doors loomed like silent sentinels, guarding the core access hatch beyond. Somewhere deep within the station's steel skeleton, the reactor's heartbeat. Ahead, the reinforced blast doors loomed like silent sentinels, guarding the core access hatch beyond. Somewhere deep within the station's steel skeleton, the reactor's heartbeat pulsed in anxious rhythm, each thrum echoing through titanium girders and service conduits. A low hum of energy vibrated along the floor plating, reverberating into Mara Sloane's boots as she crouched behind a collapsed power conduit. Her breath came in measured gasps, white mist drifting from the sealed helmet of her playsuit. Twin ripples of warning light shimmered on the walls. Red and amber, the malfunction indicators, the station's automated lockdown sequence. Mara's gloved fingers grazed the edge of her plasma pistol, the weapon's barrel cooling from its last discharge. She dared not expose herself to unnecessary risk. Those security drones, sleek and deathly silent, patrolled these halls like ghost hounds. Somewhere ahead, she had glimpsed one through the corner of her visor. A silver spider of servos and lenses, scanning for life signs, and Mara was the only life sign in sight. She edged forward, every step calculated. The corridor narrowed here, forcing her close to the walls. She leaned her ear against the cold steel, listening. The reactor's hum grew louder in this labyrinthine innards of the station. It felt as though the giant core was calling her name, taunting her with every beat she swallowed. Wiping a trickle of sweat from her brow, time was slipping away behind her. Lieutenant Kali Riznik guarded their rear. Kali's silhouette was a shadow within a shadow, her pulse rifle cradled ready. They had split up to outflank the drone's patrol patterns, but their comlinks crackled with static. Mara tapped her headset twice, voice low. "Kali, you seeing anything?" "Just corridors and echoes," came Kali's whisper. "Keep moving, I'll flank east. Meet at the hatch." Mara nodded, though she knew Kali couldn't see her. "Copy that. Watch your back." She rose, pressing her shoulder against the conduit shreds, and darted forward when the nearest drone's sensor beam swung past. Light and dark chased each other in pulses, and Mara's heart hammered in her chest. One wrong move, one stray footstep on a loose panel, and she'd be discovered. The station's defense AI would lock onto her signature instantly. Up ahead, a junction. 2 corridors branched left and right. A flicker of motion caught Mara's attention in the left passage. The faint glimmer of mechanical limbs. She froze, scanning. Yes, another drone, idling near a control console, as if monitoring power flows. The console's screen burned with data, energy readouts, reactor temperature, failsafe overrides. She needed access codes. She needed to manually disengage the shutter locking the core access hatch. She checked her wristboard. 31 minutes, until the reactor soared past safe thresholds. After that cataclysm, the station would detonate its containment failsafe, ripping open, releasing a storm of radiation and plasma. They'd all perish long before the rescue fleet arrived. Mara's fingers danced over the wristboard screen, switching power to her stealth enhancer. Her form shimmered. She breathed evenly, stepping into the corridor's crossfire pattern. The drone's multi-lens turret rotated, then returned to the console. Heart lodged in her throat, Mara sprinted. The shimmer rippled as she passed the drone. Half blending into the darkness, she snatched the console's access panel, its lock secured by a triple encryption algorithm. Plugging in her hacking module felt like prying open a safe, with time itself slipping through her fingers. Lines of code scrolled across her wristboard. Security measures, override subroutines. Something tripped. An alert flashed red. Unauthorized intrusion detected. The drone jerked upright, sensors snapping to attention. Mara yanked free her module and sprinted for cover ahead. A side door hissed open. She dove through just as the drone's twin lasers fired bright streaks that sizzled across the floor. Sparks flew. Light blossomed like a starburst, and then faded. She lay on her stomach in the narrow storage alcove, chest heaving, ears ringing. She dared not peek. Minutes stretched, no pulse of lasers, no mechanical whir. She rose on trembling limbs, creeping back to the console. The drone was collapsed in a crumpled heap, circuit fried. She frowned. Who had disabled it? A second alert winked on the console. System anomaly corrected. The reactor's hum deepened, almost smug a voice crackled in her earpiece Kali's. Mara, your drone's down, I saw it go dark, you okay? Mara exhaled, I'm fine, but someone's here. Someone or something, Kali's tone was a whisper. I heard metallic footsteps, 2 sets moving away from your position. Cold dread slithered down Mara's spine. Could be civilians or mercs, just keep your guard up. She keyed the console again this time. The encryption wardens held fast the station's AI repelled her override attempts. The hum pulsed faster, as if scolding Mara's mind raced. She needed direct interface, access terminals inside the core access hatch itself, but the blast door was sealed, only way to open it. Power up the station's ancient manual override cube rumor said it lay behind 3 locked security sublevels below them. The reactor's control node glowed like a secluded shrine deep in the spine. A cluster of conduits forging into the core, her comlink flared. Kali's voice, nervous. Got movement to the south, 2 armed figures, industrial-grade armor, they're scanning for us. Mara's breath stuttered. On my way. She left the console behind, sprinting down the corridor to the junction. The lights here pulsed red. Emergency power, the station's grid was failing. Temperature warnings blinked on every screen. She risked a glance at her wristboard. 30 minutes and counting. They sprinted side by side through the narrowing halls, past wounded sections where smoke curled from ruptured pipes. Molten metal pooled at angles against gravity. The station was bleeding energy. Choking, a distant roar shook the floor beneath her. She thought it was the reactor's tremor. Aiming to tear itself free from its mount, they barreled through a security checkpoint. And Kali jammed her rifle's muzzle against the hatch controls. She thumbed the override, a mechanical whine, then a thud. And the door slid open. 5 meters of reinforced alloy receding into the wall. The air beyond rippled with heat. A translucent field of glowing red energy guarded access to the shaft. The protective barrier hummed, discharging arcs of static. Mara swallowed the heat. She toggled the cooling vent on her suit. You still got my back. Always, Kali replied, stepping in. They passed into a cramped cubicle. The outer door ceiling shut behind them. The field snapped off before them. The shaft dropped 100 meters straight down into the station's heart. The walls were lined with service conduits, pulsing veins of power. A service ladder dangled. But the climb would take too long. They had 15 minutes. Mara activated a magnetic rappel line from her pack, fastening it to the overhead rail. Kali did the same. They launched themselves over the edge, plummeting into darkness. The shaft's roar deafening. Halfway down, Kali fumbled. Sparks flew along her line. She slowed, startled. The line's magnetic charge flickered. Dytek's old, I can't hold much longer. Mara clipped her own line to Kali's harness. Just a bit further. Time stretched as the ground approached. The ladder ended in a graded platform, suspended 60 meters above the reactor's outer casing. When their boots touched metal, relief washed through Mara's limbs. She looked out at the reactor core. A 10-meter cylinder of fused titanium and nanofiber, glowing with molten plasma like a captive sun. Struts of support girdled it in a spiderweb of alloys. The containment dome shimmered with a barrier field, translucent violet. Beyond that, the core's pulsations felt alive, like the heart of an ancient beast. This is it, Mara whispered, awe and fear warring in her voice. We're inside the spine. Kali nodded. Systems are locked down tight. Main override is through that console. She pointed to a narrow catwalk curving around the dome. But drone patrols guard both sides, and because of the meltdown progression, the field will seal us in here in 10 minutes. Mara pulled out a small device, a data spike. This'll map the drone circuits. I can loop them for about 2 minutes, enough to slip by. Kali glanced at the field. 2 minutes go. Mara plunged into the catwalk, data spike in glove. She passed maintenance ducts, panels with blinking lights, and glimpsed a security drone perched on a railing across the walkway. Its lenses tracked her. She attached the spike to her wristboard and hit send. The code scrolled. The drone's head pivoted. Sensor beam flickered. Then went dark. Caught in the loop, she slipped past. As its inert shell passed behind her, the far side of the catwalk revealed the console, an angular pedestal festooned with holographic readouts. She hurried to it. Scanning its interface, reactor core readouts, field stability, failsafe toggles. The manual override was buried deep under 6 submenus. She tapped, slid windows, entered override keywords. The reactor's hum roared louder. As though in protest, a yellow alert flared. Containment field shutting in 832. Almost there, Mara muttered. Her fingers flew. Submenu 5 access code. Singularity Delta. She entered it. Submenu 6. She paused. The next command would release the field or lock it permanently. She hesitated. A voice in her head warned. Incorrect input could trigger fail-safes. She took a breath and keyed the final sequence. Open containment protocol. The field around the core waned. In rippling waves of violet sparks danced on its edges beyond the dome. A gleaming shaft led to the core access hatch above, but as the field collapsed, the core's surface pulsed violently. A deep rumble shook the walkway plates, buckled Geiger counters on her belt spun at alarming speed. Kali shouted over comms, "Mara, get back now." Mara backed away as the core trembled, metal groaned, heat hissed like a fury unleashed. She jammed the spike into her pack and ran for the shaft, the drone circuits rebooted behind her. Dozens of mechanical eyes flickering back to life, they turned toward her, anti-collision lasers aglow. "Kali, go," Mara gasped. Sprinting, Kali nodded. Stepping aside so Mara could use the ladder, she helped Mara clip her line, then launched upward above. The ladder rattled as more drones poured into the shaft entrance. Leaping from catwalks in silver arcs, they fired suppressive lasers. Mara steadied her nerves and climbed the shaft flared with tracer beams, red cuts in darkness. Halfway up, a searing heat wave blasted the ladder's rungs. Radiation leak from the destabilized reactor, the plates beneath her feet glowed red hot. She recoiled. Yanking her boot free, sparks erupted. Kali grabbed her arm. "Climate controls failing. Neutron flux rising. We need to seal the hatch, then get out." Mara hauled herself upward at the top. The catwalk shuttered, panels tore free, hurling molten slag. The containment dome cracked. A jagged fissure glowing with iridescent plasma, the core's pulse raced. She hammered the hatch controls. The blast doors thudded shut, sealing out the heat and noise. The air inside the cubicle hissed as a safety field engaged, venting superheated gas into containment pockets inside. Mara collapsed against the door, gasping. Kali dropped beside her, slamming the second lock. They watched the readouts. The reactor's criticality spiked, then leveled. The auto-isolation field held for now. "Is it stable?" Mara asked between breaths. Kali's eyes were bright with relief and fear. "Barely, but it's not melting down. We've bought ourselves time." Mara propped herself against the control panel. "Time enough to evacuate." "Maybe," Kali said. "But our exit route is still under drone lockdown, and the station's emergency protocols will reroute all power to the damaged core, locking down every zone. We need another way out." Mara's gaze settled on the viewport beside them. Through the reinforced glass, she glimpsed the inner sanctum. The fractured reactor dome, suspended in a sea of empty space. Strange auroras of charged particles danced across the gap, fluorescent ribbons of beta radiation. It was beautiful and terrifying. She stood, jaw clenched. "Then we go through the maintenance tunnels." I saw a service hatch not far from the spine shaft. It leads to Sector Delta, serviced by the external hull elevators, could get us up to a docking ring. Kali nodded slowly, wiping soot from her cheek. "It's a gamble, but it's our best shot." They powered up their suits, checked oxygen and filters. Comms were patchy, but enough to coordinate. Mara opened the hatch's inner door. The corridor beyond was bathed in emergency red light. Smoke coiled from vents. The hum of failing generators echoed. They slipped through side by side, weapons raised. The service hatch lay 3 decks south, but the path led through a labyrinth. Sealed compartments. Doors responded only to high-level overrides. They raced from bulkhead to bulkhead, Mara hacking door consoles. Kali covering her. Each door took precious seconds. Alarms rang. The station's defense AI had flagged the core intrusion. Security drones streamed from every vector at one junction. They met resistance, a pair of drones, their searchlights carving arcs through the smoke. Mara dropped behind cover and detonated an EMP grenade. A pulse wave smashed into the drones, sending them down in convulsions of sparks. Debris rained. Kali fired a single burst, shredding the hull of the nearest drone. Its pieces fell in glinting shards. They sprinted past. Mara triggered the hatch's override. The door slid open beyond, a narrow tunnel lined with cables and quick disconnect ports. She activated her helmet lights. Tiny motes of dust danced in the beam. "This is it," Mara said. They ducked inside. The door hissed shut, sealing out the corridor for a moment. Silence reigned. Then the tunnel lights flickered green, then red, and died, plunging them into darkness. Kali frantically tapped her wristboard. "Emergency powers gone. We'll be in dark until backup kicks in." Mara inhaled ahead. She sensed the far end. She slipped her hand along the wall, counting steps. The tunnel angled down, emptier with every meter. Finally, she felt the raised seam of a service hatch. She pried it open. Outside, the main ring corridor stretched, orbiting the station like a skeletal halo. One long, spiraling walkway led to the docking ring. It was deserted. A handful of escape pods lay dormant, but also mercenary skiffs. Unpowered but intact, Mara clambered out. Followed by Kali, they crept along the hull, shadows hugging their suits. The station's exterior lights flickered as auxiliary generators died. The docking ring hung silent. Tethered to cold void, they reached the first skiff. An underpowered 2-seater. Controls were intact but required charging. They'd need time to reroute power behind them. Alarms began anew, security circuits rebooting, drones on patrol. 5 minutes, Mara whispered. She opened the console panel and began rewiring power conduits. Sparks flew. Kali stood guard, scanning the ring's expanse. Distant shape drifted by, could be debris, could be an enemy recon drone. She trained her rifle on it. It passed Mara's rewire, progressed 4 minutes 3. The panel lit. She flipped the skiff's main switch systems, hummed the engines, charged the comlink, flickered. A voice crackled through. Sloan Resnick, are you reading? Mara's heart leapt. That you, Captain? We're at Docking Ring West 202. Affirmative, the captain's voice said. Relief threaded his tone. We lost comms after the meltdown alert. We're prepping a pickup. Kali exhaled. You better be, we're about to have company. Mara trained her sights on the ring entrance. A squad of drones rounded the curve, gleaming eyes locked on them. Mara keyed her mic. Captain, ETA. 2 minutes, he replied. Mara's finger hovered on the launch button. The drones closed in. Within 40 meters, Kali sprang forward, unleashing tracer rounds. The skiff's comm overload whined as stray beams hit its hull. Sparks showered. Mara grabbed Kylie's arm, dragging her into the cockpit. Go, Mara shouted. She hit ignition. The twin thrusters roared to life. The skiff lurched off the rail behind them. The drones howled and opened fire. Laser bolts slashed across the ring, gouging chunks of metal free. They scorched past the skiff's flanks. Molly braced herself as Kali keyed the nav interface. Destiny sparks. Autopilot acknowledged Captain's docking ring coordinate. The skiff spun and fired bursts from its maneuver jets. Weaving through the drone onslaught, Mara felt every quart of fuel drain as she banked the vessel toward open space. Toward rescue, a blast rocked the skiff's rear hull. Heat flared, alarms blared, smoke flooded the cockpit. Kali coughed. Mara steadied her vision. Eyes locked on the distant lifeboat. Docking port 500 meters 403, the captain's voice crackled. Bring it in, Sloan, we're opening the airlock. On it, Mara said. She triggered the docking clamps. They latched with a metallic click on screen. The lifeboat's boarding ramp extended, but the skiff's thrusters misfired. The vessel yawing, they were skewed off center. Distance too close, angle too steep. Kali shouted, hold steady. Mara ground her teeth, coaxing the joystick until the lamps on the docking bay glowed green. Then Kali slammed the release latch. The ramp slammed against the skiff's hatch. It buckled inward. They were sealed. Mara raised her hand. The door glowed, ready. Get them aboard, the captain's voice ordered. The ramp hissed open. Mara leapt out first, arms clutching her sidearm. Kali followed, glove brushing Mara's shoulder. They landed inside the lifeboat, greeted by 2 Marine crewmen within seconds. The ramp retracted. The bay doors slid shut, sealing them in darkness save for emergency red strips. The engines flared, and the lifeboat sprang free. The station's ring dropped away. A distant explosion rippled across the hull. An aftershock from the core fissure corridors collapsed. Lights snapped. Mara sank to a bench, legs trembling. Kali slid next to her, monitoring the readouts. The lifeboat's pilot came around, smiling thinly. We got you out just in time. Mara nodded, eyes on the viewport. The station's silhouette faded into the void. The reactor's glow was dim. A dying pulse. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding behind her. The crew strapped in the lifeboat hummed as its engines engaged stabilization thrusters. They maneuvered in formation with the rescue fleet. Heading for the parent ship, Mara rose and crossed to the comm station. She keyed a message to command. Station 17B secure core, neutralized, casualties minimal. Extraction successful. A moment passed, then a cold voice responded. Understood, Commander Sloan. Mission parameters complete. Return to base. Debrief pending. Mara swallowed. Her side ached, ribs bruised. She opened the cabin door and stepped onto the deck, eyes lingering on the viewport. The station receded. A wounded monument against the starfield. Somewhere within its silent halls, hundreds of lives had been saved because she and Kali risked everything. She turned to Kali, who gave her a small nod in that gesture. Mara found the only reward she needed around them. The crew prepared for the long trip home. The hum of the engines melted into the hush of deep space. Outside, the reactor's faint glow lingered, a reminder that light can be born from darkness, and that every heartbeat, however fragile, deserves the chance to pulse again. Mara exhaled, shoulders relaxing. For the first time in hours, the mission had succeeded. The station and its inhabitants were safe for now. As the lifeboat slid into the star lanes, twisting toward the rescue cruiser, Mara allowed herself a rare moment of peace. They would return to duty. New assignments awaited. The universe would never rest, but in this quiet cockpit, drifting among ancient constellations, Mara Sloan let the silence wash over her, forging resolve for the next challenge beyond the stars.